All right, everyone, thanks for coming tonight. So like Jaya said, my name's Jake Black, and I actually grew up over in Summit County, in Keystone, actually. And so I have a couple of friends here that I grew up snowboarding with. And like Dr. Kevin, actually, I went to the CMC over there. And throughout the years traveling and things like that, I was noticing some of the problems we were having across not only our communities, but around the world with climate, and wanted to be more involved. So I started getting more active with POW. And how many of you guys, let's just see a raise of hand, have heard of POW before? All right, so we have a pretty good chunk of the group. So POW is a very unique organization in the sense that it was started by professional snowboarder Jeremy Jones, who he has, if you guys are snowboarders or follow any of it, he has Jones Snowboards, which is a fairly big brand, and then he also has been in many of his own films. And he's got a couple of children actually, and he felt that climate is something that's being very overlooked, and it's something that we all need to take action on because it's something very, very big. So we're going to get into some of the details. This program is actually one we share with schools, and it's something that we want to share with you guys and talk more about, how is it that it affects Steamboat, and how are things that we can all do collectively, because we, as an organization, work internationally, but our main offices are in Boulder, and so, but we work with roughly 100 athletes like Arielle and Taylor, who are speaking up and elevating the significance of climate in their communities, and not just because, I guess I would say it's if we can't all ski and snowboard, boo-hoo is kind of the answer that we get most of the time. But when we can talk about how skiing and snowboarding, not only we might lose snow and you can't ski and snowboard, but so many communities and hundreds of thousands and billions of dollars depend on that stable climate, that changes the framework of it. So, without further ado, these guys don't need much introduction, but here we have Arielle and Taylor Gold, and they're going to go through, we've got a fun video that has some of our other athletes in it, and they're going to talk a little about their stories, and then we'll get into some actions that we have for everybody that we think that can take, and even some stuff for the kids. So, yeah. Thank you, guys.
So thank you guys for coming. Yeah, we're really excited to be back in our hometown. I'm Taylor Gold, and I grew up here and have been here my whole life. So it's really cool to come home and see a community that all cares about climate change. And glad to be able to show you this video and kind of add a couple more things that maybe you didn't know about the science side and some other things that you could do.
I mean, yeah, exactly what you said. We're excited to be here. It's been a minute since we've gotten the chance to come home, so to be able to come home and see some familiar faces and spend some time talking to you guys about something that we both are really passionate about is an awesome opportunity. And to start things off, we just put together a couple of our runs from the past couple of years just so you guys can kind of see what we do.
He was your men's head champ. And if you're wondering how Taylor Gold did it, this is how, scoring 87.63, the highest score in the men's field today. Let's take you through this. Check out the board flex on that method. First hit is huge. Second hit, even bigger. Front side 1260 into the double Michael Chuck. That is a combination of all combinations. Front side in 1080 double cork into the cap 1080 chicken salad, and then the crippler roast beef. So
By somebody, yeah.
So, yeah, this one.
It comes down to this, the third and final run for 21-year-old Arielle Gold out of Steamboat Springs, Colorado. Currently sitting in fourth.
Arielle needs to bring it on this last run, her last chance to possibly get on the podium. Nice 1080 combo up top. That's what the judges want. They want you to go for the risk straight off the bat. She comes around on a 900-degree rotation. And then ends it off. Now, she was scored very low for a similar run. I think she cleaned up that 1080 on that final run there.
To take the lead, she'll need a 93.75. As Arielle Gold looks and waits to see her fate. How about this?
So, I mean, I would say being a professional athlete, something that I've always tried to do is use whatever influence I have to have a positive impact, especially in my local community. You know, one of the things that I've always kind of worked on or worked with is animal rescues. That's another big cause that I advocate for. But I've been working with Protect Our Winners for the past 4 or 5 years now, I think. Just trying to speak out about a cause that I'm passionate about, especially growing up in such an amazing town like Steamboat. I want to do whatever I can to try and preserve the natural beauty that we have here so that future generations can enjoy it as much as Taylor and I did.
Yeah, and pretty much the same for me. I'm really glad to be here on behalf of POW, and this is actually the first day of POW Talks for me, so don't judge too harshly. But yeah, I mean, I think we all recognize that this is a big issue, and it's become very obvious in recent years that this is something we all need to address. It's been really frustrating as snowboarders to watch the snow decline so quickly, not just here, but all across the world. We travel, you know, to Switzerland and all across Europe and Southern Hemisphere, and this isn't just here, this is everywhere, is dealing with these same climate issues. So, yeah, I think we can probably get into a couple more videos kind of talking about the science and stuff.
Just hit the side button and choose play.
And I'm a professional skier from Salt Lake City, Utah. I love the outdoors, and so I'm a member of the Protect Our Winners Riders Alliance, which is a community of professional athletes committed to helping solve climate change, which is an issue that affects every single one of us, including you. So we're here today because we know that you can be part of the solution. We're going to share stories about the outdoors and why we're so committed to tackling climate change while providing you with some of the latest climate science, breaking down what we believe is the single most important issue of our generation. Most importantly, we'll let you know how you can make a difference with us. We love the outdoors, and it makes us who we are. It's inspired us to find a way to spend our entire careers in the mountains. When you spend time outside and you take notice of the world around you, from the highest peaks to the lowest valley floors, and even the simple beauty right outside your back door, it's hard not to be in awe, and you quickly realize that we're not two separate ecosystems, but instead we're just totally intertwined and dependent on each other for survival. And with that comes a great respect for what we have and an even bigger responsibility to protect and preserve it. We love this rad planet that we all share, and as the late founder of the North Face, Doug Tompkins, once said, protecting it is how we pay rent for it, because after all, it's the only home that we have.
So there's our little video, and I think we're just really focused on things that we can do And some easy stuff, there's always, like we can bring plastic bags to the store, or not use plastic bags at the store, bring your own reusable bags, bring your own water bottle. That kind of stuff is always really easy. But we're always looking for ways to push past that, and kind of what has seemed to be the more effective way about going about it is calling your representatives, inviting your representatives. That's been instrumental in changing some of the more legislative parts of it that really make a big impact, whereas some of this other stuff is not quite as involved, but it's all stuff that we should be really accustomed to and try to do throughout our lives.
Yeah, I mean, I think on a more local level, obviously Taylor and I said we both have traveled a lot, but just going back to what you can kind of see in Steamboat, just in terms of climate change. I mean, I wasn't here very much this winter, but from the times that I was here, I could tell obviously that this definitely wasn't one of the best winters we've had in terms of snow. Definitely had some random really good pow days, but not quite as much of that champagne powder that we usually look for, especially coming from a place like this. Beyond that, I mean, coming back here during the summertime, a lot of times I like to go and try and float the river. In the past couple summers, the river's been too low to float in early June, which is not how it used to be growing up here. So it's just some of those minor changes that we're just starting to notice, especially coming back here and seeing how much it changes just in the time frames that we've been gone for, which really is not that long in the grand scheme of things. So that's really, I think, what's motivated both of us to try and kind of act on this and see what we can do to try and preserve this planet the best that we can. We got more videos.
Humans are a tiny part in the ecosystem in which we all live, but unfortunately, we have the biggest impact on it. So let's get the lowdown on the climate science behind climate change from the experts, the scientists that study this stuff every day.
We hear it so much that it feels like a buzzword, but it is far from it. Climate change is a real and serious issue. But isn't the climate always changing? What exactly is climate change? Why should we care? Well, the Earth's climate has changed throughout history. Most of these slight changes are caused by small variations in the Earth's orbit. But climate change as we know it today is characterized by an abrupt increase in the Earth's temperature. It is estimated to have gotten 1.2 to 1.4 degrees Fahrenheit warmer in just the last century. 10 out of the last 13 years were the warmest on record. 97% of climate scientists agree that this new tendency is not caused by the variations of the Earth's orbit, but rather very likely caused by human activities. That means you and me. And since the Industrial Revolution, we have come a long way. Humans built airplanes, faster cars, developed remarkable technology, and learned how the natural resources around us can be used for our benefit. Although this has led to many wonderful inventions and advancements, like the device you're using to watch this video, or the ability to take a plane halfway around the world, it also means we've increased our consumption of natural resources and in turn released a lot of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. Now, greenhouse gases occur naturally, but in excess can be dangerous to our planet. Modern human activities have increased the release of non-naturally occurring greenhouse gases because we have stepped up our demand for burning fossil fuels. The composition of greenhouse gases traps heat radiated from the sun. The more heat they trap, the warmer our planet gets. And as our planet gets warmer, we begin to feel the effects. One of climate change's biggest victims is our oceans. Oceans regulate the Earth's temperature and provide 50% of the Earth's oxygen. Climate change has increased the global temperature of the oceans by more than 0.3 degrees Fahrenheit since 1969. Although a warmer ocean might seem inviting to a beachgoer, it actually has devastating consequences for supporting life at sea. One of those consequences is ocean acidification, a direct effect of increased dissolved CO2. Since the late 18th century, ocean surface acidification has increased by 30%. A higher acid content means calcifying species, like oysters and clams and shallow water corals, are at risk, putting the entire ocean food web at risk. This is bad news for the 1 billion people relying on the ocean as its primary source of protein. Climate change has also caused the sea level to rise. Just in the last century, sea levels have risen 6.7 inches, but the rate in the last decade is nearly double. Sea levels have risen because as the ocean gets warmer, it swells. On top of that, glaciers and ice sheets are melting. Antarctica lost 36 cubic miles of ice between 2002 and 2005, and since 1994, each year on average, the Earth has lost 400 billion tons from its glaciers. That's like an ice cube 7.5 kilometers on the side, 4 miles on a side, melting and flowing into the sea. When all that ice melts, it fills up our oceans, and just like filling up a bathtub, the shores can't hold all that water, and coastal regions get flooded. Troubling signs of climate change are increased extreme weather events. Natural disasters like floods, tornadoes, and deadly heat waves are more obvious to humans because of their immediate impact and their sharing of the images in the media. Climate change, as we know it today, is change in our Earth's overall temperature with massive and permanent ramifications. Although its consequences can be planet-threatening, scientists still believe there are things we can do on a personal level to help. Recycle and reuse things. Walk or use public transportation to get to work. Turn off your electronics when you're not using them. Eat less meat. While you're at it, eat more locally grown vegetables and foods. And last but not least, spread your knowledge and concerns about climate change with others. When it comes to climate change, the main takeaway is that it's real. And although we are part of the cause, we can also be part of the solution.
So now you know the causes of climate change. Let's take a look at the impacts both at home and around the world. From heat waves to multi-year droughts and superstorms, climate change is affecting every corner of the earth, including your own backyard. Our winters are already changing, becoming warmer, wetter, and shorter. As more rain falls and snow, it'll impact the water for cities and farms that depend on snow runoff for drinking water and irrigation. In my personal travels for skiing, I've seen glaciers around the world receding, which means less water for everyone downstream. One of my favorites is Glacier National Park in Montana. There was once over 125 glaciers, and now there's just 50 left. Because the ice sheets are melting, especially in Greenland and Antarctica, big parts of coastal cities like Miami, New York, and New Orleans will all be underwater by 2100. In the Rockies, millions of pine trees have already died because of the pine beetles that thrive in warmer winters. This is happening right now, and in a very short time, scientists say that if we don't do anything about it, the temperature will rise up to 3 degrees Fahrenheit, which might not seem like much, but it's warmer than we've seen in millions of years. And it's not stopping there. It's affecting the places we love and the communities that we live and work in. So when you think about it, everything depends on a stable climate, and we're the ones that are changing that. Think about it this way, wouldn't it suck to never have another snow day again?
Yeah, so kind of get the gist there. It's definitely been a challenging last 10 years or so, especially watching the climate get hotter and hotter, and having 2016 be the hottest year on record. It's definitely hard to watch the snow disappearing, and not only that, but something that we've seen here in Colorado is, the fires in the summer have gotten really bad. Like last summer, it was smoky in Colorado almost the entire summer, and that's definitely due to climate change. Like Bill was saying there, it's we're going to see more and more extreme weather events the more this progresses. So it's good to see people taking action against changing climate.
Yeah, I think another kind of example that we've seen on more of an international level was actually Taylor and I both went to the Olympics in Sochi, Russia, and I'm sure a lot of you were kind of reading some of the horror stories, news articles about kind of the conditions over there. They seem a little less relevant now that we've already had another Olympics go by, but you know, going back to that Olympic experience, I remember both of us got there and expected, you know, these amazing snow conditions, it to be, you know, one of the best half pipes we've ever ridden, some of the best snow that we've ever had, and it was 60 degrees, and they were spraying blue chemicals all over the half pipe to try and preserve it for our contest. So we both ended up competing without hardly any practice, and you know, he ended up falling on tricks he should have landed in his sleep. I ended up hurting myself. And yeah, it just, you know, it affects all of us. That's just one example of when it's affected us while we've been competing and, you know, trying to do our jobs. So especially in a town like this, a community like this that relies so heavily on the outdoor industry, you know, we need to be able to look out for this planet and look out for our town.
So it's no secret that we have a massive carbon problem, mainly from the way that we traditionally generate electricity and burn fuel for our transportation. And our dependence on coal, oil, gas, and other fossil fuels is a direct cause of the impacts of climate change that we just saw. So what's the good news? The good news is that we can do something about this and restore our planet to the way that it should be. But it's going to take a big effort from all of us, from you, from me, from your friends. So here's how the change is going to happen. First, we have to minimize our own carbon footprint. So this means changing some of our habits to make sure that we use less energy in our everyday lives. We're also going to need to change the way that we produce energy and changing that to clean energy. We just can't keep burning fossil fuels the same way we've done for over 100 years and expect that the planet's going to be okay. So don't you think that maybe it's time to stop burning rocks for energy and embrace new technology? Solar and wind energy are here already, and batteries are changing how we travel and store energy. So much so that at some point soon we'll be able to produce and store our own clean energy right at home, which is going to be amazing. Governments need to take action too to enact policies that make sure our transition to clean energy moves quickly. So now we know the causes and the solutions are right in front of us. All this needs now is you.
Okay, so as Taylor kind of touched on, there are obviously really small adjustments that you can make in your life towards kind of preventing climate change as much as possible, such as bringing reusable bags to the grocery store, really small adjustment, bringing a reusable coffee cup when you go get a cup of coffee in the morning. And those are all great, and those do help in their own small way, but there are larger scale things that we can do in order to help, and you know, one of those things is on a governmental level, just voting in regards to what you care about and what you're passionate about, trying to make sure that we vote for reflects those opinions. And this is a little better crowd. We were talking to some elementary schoolers about this earlier today. I think the voting thing is a little more applicable to this crowd. But the other thing that my parents are doing, which I think is awesome, is they're currently in the works on a new house here in Steamboat, and they're putting solar panels on the roof. That's another really great thing that you can do. It's expensive in the beginning, but they pay themselves off in the long run. So that's another small change that you can make to work towards more clean energy.
Yeah, and like Arielle was saying, just investing in general in a clean energy economy. So, you know, when you invest in a car, that maybe get a car that at least has good gas mileage, if not electric, and, you know, setting up a solar array, and, you know, generally just supporting projects in your community that kind of brings sustainability to the forefront as far as what they're looking for. And PAL's got some interesting ideas just as far as legislature goes, such as setting an economic-wide price on carbon, and, you know, being smart about the way you get to work, trying to travel in ways that reduce your carbon footprint, and all these things are really important, and, you know, something as simple as riding your bike to work can help. So always just working on something to help the environment. One more video.
So you may be thinking, okay, what next? How can a young student really make a difference? But the truth is, whether you're a climate scientist, a professional athlete, or a student, we all have a big hand in this. This planet can't restore itself on its own anymore, and it needs our help right now. We're dependent on each other, and it's time for all of us to step in. As athletes, we've always pushed the boundaries, challenged the system, questioned everything. Why? Because if we're going to progress, we don't accept anything at face value, and neither should you. So look around your school, your home, pay attention to the things that might seem normal, and ask yourself, why are things done this way? And then ask, what if we did them this way? And you'll be amazed that once you start asking these questions, you see the world through a totally different lens, and you'll be amazed at the places that your ingenuity and creativity will take you. These students have done some pretty amazing things by asking those same questions when something needed to be changed, and you can too. Before you leave here today, take the first step and commit to becoming an environmental voice just like us. Reduce your carbon footprint, raise your voice on social media, set an example and tell your friends how much you care about this, or even send a letter to your mayor or senator asking them to act on climate. Make this responsibility part of who you are, just like you brush your teeth every day or check Instagram in the morning. Doing the simple things to protect this planet should be a part of our everyday lives. It's our responsibility now to make this part of what we just do. So we know it's a tall order, but I'm always up for a challenge, and this is the biggest one yet, so please join me. But think about it. We can put a man on the moon, invent the internet, and cure some of the most deadly diseases, so I know that we can do this too.
So like we were saying earlier, a great way to get involved is by getting in touch with your representatives. And just to kind of show everybody how easy this is, I think we're going to have Jake come up here and call one of our local representatives. And I think just calling is really important, just giving them kind of the impression that the community wants a certain issue resolved, and the more people get involved in that call, then the more change actually ends up happening.
All right, thanks, Taylor. So, we're eventually going to get to a call. I'm going to show you guys a couple of things to back up a little bit of what our story is here. Because POW, again, it's, we're a bunch of snowboarders and skiers. We actually have snowboarders, skiers, fishing guides, explorers. One of our, there are Riders Alliance members has been to the the South Pole 35 times or something like that. So we have a lot of these people that have been around the world and are seeing these things on a day-to-day basis. And then they're going to Washington, D.C. Arielle is actually going to D.C. in a couple of weeks to meet with representatives. And it's amazing how the conversation changes, because I want to emphasize, I'm going to come over here to just get away from the table, but, to talk about this, but emphasize that this is not a one-party problem. Science is a truth. Science is what is. There's no, well, you know, you can question science, but that's how peer-reviewed science works. This is what peer-reviewed science is telling us. Climate is a serious problem, and we're in a big problem. You know, we're going to have bigger issues growing globally if we don't take action on this. It's not that it's just the left's problem or the right's problem. A lot of these ideas, Taylor mentioned, we have 4 very specific goals that we are working towards in different states and federally. And the 4 are, the first one is transitioning towards a clean energy economy. Specifically, we talk solar most of the time because, I don't know if you guys know this, but solar owns about, let's say it's 13 or 15% of the US energy production. So it's not a very big number, right? Did you know that solar alone provides more jobs than coal, natural gas, and any other fossil fuels and gasoline? So solar alone, with 13% of the market, provides more jobs already. But, you know, I'm not meaning to point fingers here, but supposedly we're going to bring coal back. But coal in an open market is dying. Solar is not dying. If you think of it in 2 different perspectives here, coal is this rock that has propelled us to where we are today. It's an incredibly powerful energy source that has allowed us to, you know, use computers and do this and that, and it has brought society to a whole nother level. But then you have a solar panel, which is a technology, and if you guys know what Moore's law is the technical term. Technology outdates itself every 3 years. So coal has maxed its potential in a sense. Yes, a lot of it is dissipated through heat, so maybe there's a way we can capture more energy through that. But coal is, you know, right here on the chart. It's a rock that we burn, and it, you know, we boil some water with it, and it turns turbines, and we get some energy. Great. It's an ingenious idea. Solar is this technology that maybe you have to use a little bit of coal or fossil fuel to build it initially at this point. But the life cycle of that solar panel is 20-some years. So you have this coal that, boom, you burn it, or let's call it 1 gallon of gasoline, you get 20 miles per gallon. That's great. But let's say you take that same gallon of gasoline and you turn it into a solar panel, and that solar panel provides energy for 20 years. Not only is it efficient, it costs less on the open market, provides more jobs, it reduces air quality issues, improves public health, increases national security. There's a plethora of things that it solves, but at the same time it can help solve climate change. So to me it's a no-brainer, but for some reason in many cases it becomes an issue, and it's because people's livelihoods are at stake. You know, down the street here is one of the state's biggest energy providers, and it's a lot of coal. And we do need to bring them into the conversation. We need to figure out how to work with communities like Craig and talk to them and figure out how can we transition, how can we work with you guys, because the point isn't to just be like, well, you guys are doing it wrong. This is the right way to do it, forgive you. We all have to come to this together. Ranchers are a big issue. You know, I know Bill Nye, the science guy, talks about eating less meat. Eating less meat, these studies are shown off of global issues, and a lot of it has to do with slash and burn practices and methane and things like that. But overall, about 80% of our nation's greenhouse gas emissions come from our fossil fuel consumption. So with 13 to 20% of that coming from agriculture, that is something we need to address. But if the major contributor is 80%, we need to be talking about what we're going to do with this 80% problem. So I went on a little tangent there. The second goal is setting an economy-wide price on carbon. That's a conservative concept. It's how can we, and one of the ideas is, you know, all of a sudden there's just a tax on carbon. For every ton of carbon that's put out, it costs $10. I'm making up a number. But then at the end of the year, all of that money is returned to working families. It's not to be, you know, go into the coffers and it's for road maintenance or things like that. This is one of the concepts. But let's say we put it just into a pool, and at the end of every year, every family of 4 gets an average of like $400 back. Or maybe it's $2,000, depending on what it is. But then next year, the 1 ton of carbon to emit costs $20. And it wouldn't be that tomorrow we put this law into effect. It would be that, okay, we're going to put a price on carbon and it starts in 2025 or something like that. So this allows the open market to take actions which reduce their carbon, you know, emissions or their greenhouse gas emissions on their own in any way they like. And then if they choose not to, they're taxed on it. And eventually what that does is it incentivizes innovation, and it allows everybody to move off of these fossil fuels. Another way I like to say this is, you know, how many of you guys still use a fax machine? We have one fax machine user. So we said this in a school earlier, and no kid in the school knew what a fax machine was. But the reason is, we don't use fax machines anymore because we all carry around these. And you can do everything that a fax machine does that's smaller, faster, with less energy, and it fits in your pocket.
Does anyone else in healthcare? Yeah. That's why.
And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the fax. I'm using it as an example of we're using
so
an old...
funny. I mean, they do ridiculous things like, oh, you can't email anymore because it's not
secure.
secure.
Yeah, and I mean, there is the, the fax machine has its niche purpose.
Carry it and read it.
Yeah.
Right? So you're like...
Yeah, and that's where, and everything has its niche purpose. I'm not going to say that in the end, there's no reason for any fossil fuel consumption. That's not what I'm going to promote here, because we do a lot of awesome stuff with plastics. I mean, we make water bottles, or, there's all kinds of laminates and things like that. Our foods come packaged in it. It's not that it has zero purpose at all. It's that we need to transition from being so heavily dependent on it to it being a part of what we do. The third thing is innovating on their transportation. So that, I don't know if you guys remember when Volkswagen was sued because of their diesel issue? So there's a huge, so maybe you guys were involved in a little bit of this, but so it was some very large suit that they ended up with, and that money is earmarked to be put into, transportation charging stations and incentives for people to get more vehicles. So what we work to do is make sure that that money isn't all of a sudden getting pulled a little over here to, fix bridges or do something like that, which still is important, but we want to make sure that this is earmarked to say, hey, this is staying in solar charging, or this is going to stay so that we, incentivize more communities or help incentivize more people to buy a renewable or an electric vehicle. I don't know if you guys know this either, but it's something like, I think Tesla, the cost per month of plugging it into your home is about as much as adding a second refrigerator. So that's like, anywhere from $8 to $20 a month or something like that. And now think of that in your current consumption of, a fuel. And I have a gas driving vehicle. I'm not in any way perfect at this. So it's, that's a big area that we see a lot of potential. The fourth and final goal that we are working on right now is, elevating the significance of climate change in public lands. So in that context, as you guys may have heard, Bears Ears is under attack they're going to try and shrink it. And I guess they're shrinking it. But the big reason that we think it's very important is it's not just because they're going to shrink it because they're like, well, the park's really big. It's too big, everybody can't handle it. They're shrinking it because they want to sell off that public land to allow more drip. So that's where we're saying, whoa, whoa, whoa. So why are we investing in allowing our public lands to be sold off for fossil fuel consumption, where we're still getting pennies to the dollar of the value of that land, but that the other alternatives in these energy solutions provide more jobs, cost less money, all these different things, but we still want to invest in this. So to us, it seems a little bit out of hand. So those are our four main goals. But so I want to say then here's actually a really fun picture, and this is a bunch of our athletes. So it's kind of to show that climate, legislation and climate change and things like that, it's not the most exciting thing all the time. It's not this riveting, man, can't wait to watch C-SPAN later, it's going to be great. This is, we've got a variety of characters here. This is actually Donna Carpenter, who is the CEO of Burton Snowboards. And she is a huge advocate for climate action. She's very big on it. One of our, great supporters, she is on our board as well, but they put more money where their mouth is on this subject than almost any brand on the planet. The rest are a bunch of our different snowboarders, and this is her son George, this is Julian Carr, this is Josh Dirksen, who's from Oregon, Julian's Utah, Oregon, Alex Diebold, who used to live here, now he's in Utah, Forrest, who's Utah, and Caitlin Farrington, who's in Montana. So we have different characters from all over the country that are speaking up about climate change because it's affecting not just their livelihoods, but the communities they live in and potentially their families, or their friends and their significant others and what they do. And so, that sounds really bad, but let me show you some numbers on this. So the numbers are hard to read. I will read them for you. But right now, the snow sports results, we have more than 695,000 jobs in the snow sports industries. So that's a lot of different jobs. On this chart, it then shows, the economic sectors that we're working with. So I'm going to start Well, the first one's education, which is a $270 billion industry. We probably need to invest a little more in the education sector, but that's not our focus here. The second one is gas and fuels, is what this says, and that's a $304 billion industry. So that sounds really big, right? We're going to jump a little bit here, and the orange one is us. That's the outdoor sports industry. We are an $887 billion industry. That's almost 3 times the size of the fossil fuel industry. And yet, we don't have a very big voice in Washington in general. But this is, in the outdoor sports industry, is skiing, snowboarding, fishing, national parks, snowmobiling, all the different things that we all love to do. This is the industry. And that industry is so dependent on a stable climate. It's not just if we don't get snow, we can't have skiers. If we don't have snow, we don't have water. The Front Range, another fun fact, in Colorado, 80% of the water falls west of the Continental Divide, but 80% of our population lives east of the Continental Divide. Yeah, and so California is getting pitched because not only we're divesting water from one side of the Continental Divide to the other, which it will never reach California again, but it's getting, we're getting pinched on that. And the water, it's not that water use is going down. Water use is continuing to grow, and yet our water table and our, just our water quantities are quickly diminishing. So that's a big issue. But so this is just to show you, and just so you guys know, the only 3 industries that are showing here that are bigger is we have financial, banks and things like that, and the other 2 are healthcare. So, and which is another, to me, what makes sense is if we act on climate, we can, I don't know that healthcare is going to all of a sudden be a $300 billion industry because health is a huge issue, but healthcare can be reduced because we have cleaner environments and we have more actions in place that are helping everything. So, this is who, many of you guys might know Dylan Roberts. And he actually has given us his telephone number and he's on call waiting for us. Because I think he has some really cool news to tell you guys about what is going on in Colorado right now. And I'm showing you guys this because I actually want to see this. How many of you guys have ever just called your representatives? State, local, whatever. So it's, that's not a unanimous everybody in the room. I'm showing you this just because it's so easy, because if you're pissed, or if you're, not even all these that you're pissed, it's very good to congratulate people when they've done something great. I will say that. It goes a long way if you're like, hey, Dylan, you're kicking butt. Keep up the good work. It affirms him that he's like, my constituents agree with what I'm doing and I'm going to work towards more of that. So that's a huge thing to do as well. All right, so we're going to give him a little call here. You guys can hear that? Hey, hi, this is Dylan. Hey, Dylan, this is Jake Black. I'm in Steamboat talking to a bit of the community here. Hi, everybody. Hey. Hi. Yeah, I think a couple of them in here might know you. Okay, I bet, maybe a few. Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on call for us here. I just wanted to take a couple of minutes of your time to, I guess, ask a few questions and highlight a couple of the things that are happening here in Colorado right now. Great. Well, first off, as someone in your position and working on, you're on energy and transportation. You're on the Energy and Transportation Committee, correct? Yes, I am. So with that, what are some of the big things that are happening within the state in that sector or genre right now? So, yeah, there's several big things. A big debate down at the Capitol over the last few years, and continues to be this year, is the amount of money that was spending on transportation. I think everybody in Steamboat knows that our roads in Colorado are significantly underfunded as far as new construction and dealing with traffic as more people move to the state. But we, on the Transportation Committee, people from my party and some people from the other side of the aisle as well, want to make sure that we're transitioning to the new way of transportation and making sure that just as much as we fund roads and bridges, that we're also thinking about mass transportation and multimodal forms of transportation as ways to incentivize people to utilize energy-efficient means of transportation. We're also on the energy side. We actually just passed a really exciting bill. It's I mean, that is a huge, huge task to take on, and I think it's amazing that Colorado is willing to do this. And so we've passed in the House. You know, I guess the vote probably isn't set, but when will the vote be in the Congress? And we have, roughly 100 people in here. What are things that anyone in here could do to help encourage, the Senate to pass this?
Yes, so everybody in Steamboat, everybody in Round County, your state senator is Randy Baumgartner. He is not from the same party that I am from, but there is hope that he might be supportive of this bill or other bills that you care about. So the number one thing I know for me is I always love hearing from constituents. If a constituent emails or calls me about a specific piece of legislation that is being debated in the legislature, I listen to that and put so much more weight into that than what a lobbyist might say to me or somebody who's not from my district. So that individual contact to me, your representative, or your senator, Senator Baumgartner, is the best thing that you can do if you care about that piece of legislation. So his email and his phone number are online. I'm sure you all can figure out how to find it. I don't have it right off the top of my head, but it's pretty simple. So contact me, Senator Baumgartner. And then it has not been assigned to a committee over in the Senate yet. It'll go to a committee, obviously, before it goes to the full Senate floor. You can also contact all the members of the Senate committee and say, I'm a Coloradan, you're a Colorado senator, and that's why I'm contacting you, and then share your opinion. So contacting your legislators directly, we're state legislators, we should be able to email or respond to you by phone, and it's important that we hear from you.
Awesome. Yeah, that's amazing. That's what we are definitely working to have more people speak up about these issues, because we've been talking about this scale of the outdoor industry and just how Colorado has such a big part of the ski industry, but also the summer factor of biking and parks and things like that, and that so much of our economy is dependent on like stable climate and a snowy season, and we think the state should act more towards that.
Absolutely, and down here at the legislature, it's too often, in my opinion, Denver-centric, and I think people lose sight of the fact that it's our communities that play a huge part in our state's economic success. And if we don't have as much snow as we usually do, that is going to cause a big impact.
Yeah, great. Well, Dylan, thank you so much. We won't take any more of your time here, but really appreciate your insight. And I think you'll see some letters and calls here soon.
Yeah, thank you, and to everybody who's there, thank you for your participation.
All right, thank you, Dylan. Have a great rest of your night.
You guys too.
All right, bye-bye. Okay, so 2 things. That's really great news, but 2, it also wasn't very hard. I do, actually in my favorites on my phone is saved all of my representatives, and if I'm driving somewhere or whatever or something like that, you can just call and say, hey, I just wanted to call and tell you I think you should act on climate a little more, or I think that whatever issue that you guys are concerned with is very easy to speak up on. And, like Dylan, what they do is they tally how many calls they get per day on these issues. And so that's where I'm saying that the voice for the outdoor industry is not big enough. It's something that we want to help grow, and we think we have a very unique position as the athletes to speak up on this. And I want to then go into, this is a quote I really, really like. It says, use what talents you possess. The woods would be very silent if no birds sang there except those that sang best. I bring this up because so often, because I'm a snowboarder, I'm not a climate scientist. These guys are snowboarders. People will say, well, why would I listen to you? You guys are just a bunch of snowboarders. Well, I live here. I live these things. I experience it. You don't have to know everything about the science to care about climate change, or to be like, hey, I think it's a problem that we're not doing enough on, and I just want to talk a little bit more about it. So just building that conversation and knowing you don't have to have all the answers hopefully makes it a little more comfortable. If there is, conversation that you guys feel could be confrontational. I in a sense, I guess I would say I welcome confrontation, because I think that in more ways than not, we actually relate. We had some of these school assemblies in Oklahoma, and I had a rancher that was very concerned because we talked about me. And she had some great points, and then we spoke a little bit, and she goes, I actually really like your program, and I agree, we should take some more action on climate. So it's not about creating walls, it's about how can we bring everyone into the conversation. Steamboat is a very unique place, because we have ranching communities and the ski community and the energy sectors nearby. But they're all intertwined, and we do need to speak up more, like you were saying, in the state, because they're hearing from Denver most often, because that's where the capital is, and if you're there and you can speak, great. But it's not very hard to just say, hey, Dylan or Baumgartner, I want you to take more action on this. And then, the more you call and the more everyone else calls, the more it's a popularity vote. If they're not doing what their constituents want, their constituents will vote them out. And especially, and I want to then bring up that this next fall is our we're going to be electing a new governor in Colorado. So that's where, from our end, we want climate to be one of the top issues, because Colorado is so dependent on a stable climate. So with that coming up, there's I think over a dozen different people on the ballot right now, but once we start to narrow it down, we want to be asking them, what's your stance on climate and how are you going to do something about it? So that's a really cool part. Then I have a couple of asks of you guys now. So this is something we do with the schools as well, and we ask people, it's a 3-part pledge if you feel so inclined to do all 3, but even if you write one, write a letter, make a telephone call, do whatever, to your state and senators, the state senators and representatives, your town council, show up to the town council. We've worked with a bunch of the kids. If you have kids show up to town council meetings, holy cow, dude, jaws drop and they listen. Because it's, if you hear, and kids, again, they're not the experts most of the time. They just can say, hey, I want to see more solar panels here because I want to have more snow when I grow up. And just having that buzz in the back of their head is a huge thing to keep it on their mind and make them act on it. But, things like that. In town, we have all kinds of different businesses. There's Smart Wool, and Smart Wool is a partner of ours, by the way, because they are part of VF Corp, who has a pretty forward climate action. But it doesn't mean, and it means that you guys can encourage that. You can say, Smart Wool, I like your guys' stuff, and keep up the action on that. Let's go further. Or, whatever. There's Big Agnes and things like that, where you can say, well, guys, you're a camping business, and I can't speak for Big Agnes or anything like that. They might have some sort of plan. I just don't know. But, you guys make camping equipment, and your business is dependent on this. Like, we want you to speak up more on climate or whatever issues. So that it's really simple things where you can write letters. And we do have, if you guys want for some fun, some postcards that we give to the kids, and it says, winter is in our hands, and then on the back it just says, write about something you care about. So it doesn't, climate is something we very much care about and, hope that everyone else does, but it's not that we want to force you to write climate. If you don't care about climate, write about something else. But speaking up and engaging as a citizen is a huge, huge thing, and we all are responsible for it. And then this is for the kids as well, and this is a really cool opportunity that, maybe if you guys if you're teachers or you have kids or grandchildren or whatever, Shane McConkey was an old professional skier, and he unfortunately passed, but his wife and daughter started a nonprofit, and they have this eco challenge, which is really cool. And so what they do is kids submit their ideas with some adult supervision on how they would green up their school or community, and they can win up to $10,000 in funding to make it happen. And so just to show you a couple of the examples, because the sky's the limit on this picture over here, I know it's a little blurry, but you can see it's kind of some grassy looking stuff in their hands, right? One hand is seagrass, the other hand is a golf ball. So these students last year that won the funding were, I believe it was Florida or something like that, were swimming around the ocean and noticed that their neighborhood golf course or wherever they were had a bunch of golf balls in the ocean, and that they were deteriorating and fish were eating the insides of them and it was killing the fish. So they started going out there with a bunch of nets and bringing more and more friends and this and that to go in and pick up these golf balls and clean out the ocean. So they won the funding to get more people and more initiatives getting out there and working to clean this area. So it's, that's an example there. This is a food reduction waste program where they're looking at, hey, not only are we going to compost everything, but we're going to see yesterday we had 40 pounds in extra waste after everybody had lunch. Let's cut that down, we want to get that down to almost 0 or something. So they set certain goals and figured ways to do it. They've done different, here's some of the students at the California State, in the office, I'm sorry, I can't speak on that. But they're showing up with their signs, and they went in and spoke to some of their local representatives to say, hey, we want you to protect our environments and things like that. So there's all kinds of different things where kids will be the leaders, and we want to help encourage them now. And there is a little
this
video.
green movement seems like
we'll just get to the end here. But yeah, so this is, I mean, we want more and more people speaking up, and we want to get more people involved. PAL is just something where we felt is a way to, I guess to really simplify PAL is we're a group that advocates and educates for positive climate action, but we want to create a unified voice to speak on climate. And so that's where if we can get more and more people involved, we can all not only help get messages to you guys on what are the big issues happening, we can also hear from you guys and figure out how we can all say, you know, we want solar panels. We don't want it to be a, I guess an unfortunate example is Occupy, where yes, something needs to change, but we don't have a consensus on what it is. We want to have unified messaging to say when we go to the office and, you know, Arielle goes in a couple of weeks and she sits down with one of her representatives and they're like, whoa. I mean, you guys would be amazed at the conversations. When she brings in her medal there and they're like, this is so cool. You know, I love to go skiing. And then you're like, that's really great. Well, you know, I hope you're understanding that it's a big issue with our economies if we're not getting this snow. And that's when they're going, oh, man. Yeah, you're right. Like, we need to talk on this. So we're changing the framework of how this conversation is, and we just need more people involved to do it.